Recording the music. Selling the records. Going live on stage. The business of rock. In the third week of March 1982, a special edition of What's New. Hi, welcome to What's New. How you doing? I'm Wayne Thompson.
And I'm Sarah Walsh. Well, Wayne, today the show's all yours.
Oh, I don't know that I'd say that, but it is a special edition of What's New today. Today, our whole show is going to be devoted to rock and roll and the business behind it. A lot of people are into it, some of them in a big way, but most of them never really make it big. It takes more than ambition to make it in rock, and more than music, too, as it turns out. You've got to know how to sell yourself big. Today, our guides are three guys who've made it. They call themselves Triumph. Rock music. Big, loud, wild and crazy. The kind of stuff that gets people up on their feet, dancing, cheering, busting loose, going nuts. Rock music is also something else. Very big, very risky business.
When we got into it, everybody said, well, you got 100,000 to one shot of making it. And we said, that's fine, we'll gamble.
The band is Triumph, born 1976. Today, 5 gold albums, 2 platinum, and still on the rise. The secret to success? Well, seems there's a lot more to being a rock star than rocking and rolling.
There are certain aspects of it that are wild and crazy and nasty and vicious and stuff that your mom and dad don't like. And I think that's the element of rock and roll that keeps adolescent youth so gonzo about it. But there is a side of rock and roll that is a business, and there is a side of rock and roll that is a discipline.
This is what the rock business is all about. Records. In North America alone, 350 million rock albums are pressed every year. Average retail price per album, $8. That adds up to a multi-billion-dollar business. Record sales are what can make a rock band rich, but not until a lot of other people take their cut. Record companies, promoters, manufacturers, retailers. Only one of those $8 goes to the band. When you're dealing in billions, that's still a lot of money. but competition is tough. There are over 2,000 recording rock groups in the States and Canada. It's a buyer's market. And the only way to stay alive in the business is to persuade those buyers that the album they want most is yours. Touring, promotion, radio play, they're all for the sake of record sales. Making good music isn't enough. People have to know about it, and that costs money.
Next evening, 7:10.
Triumph's headquarters, just outside Toronto in Mississauga, Ontario. At first, they handled all their own affairs. Now they can afford a staff to work out the details. Now they need one. The bigger a band gets, the more details there are to worry about. Accountants, a bookkeeper, promotion assistant, and a business manager. This is Joe Owens, as close as anyone can come to being a fourth member of the band.
There's the Lindsay Post.
It's Joe's job to take care of the business, so Triumph can take care of the music.
If they want to interview the band, that's fine.
It's where we do, everything from designing the shows to repairing gear to testing things, building props.
Out back, a huge warehouse, full of the trappings of a rock band. Drums, guitars, sound equipment, lighting systems. Gil Moore plays drums for Triumph. He also designs the explosive effects that have become a Triumph trademark. Many of them are built and tested right here in the warehouse. To complete the picture, a private recording studio. A good investment. Renting a studio can cost $1,000 a day. This one was designed and built to suit the Triumph sound.
Okay, we're ready to roll. From this top.
Office, warehouse, studio, a big operation, a huge investment to serve the music. That's where it all starts, the music. Rick Emmett plays guitar and sings for Triumph. He also writes most of Triumph's songs.
Triumph's music comes a lot of different ways. Sometimes we'll be out on the road and in sound checks we'll come up with ideas, riffs or licks or something, and then the songs will grow out of that. But in the vast majority of cases, I'll sit here at home and work on ideas, and I keep notebooks, and I write little ideas when I'm flying on planes or when I'm sitting in hotel rooms, and then I'll get songs into some sort of a presentable form where I can sing a bunch of lyrics and play chord changes and stuff, and then I'll take them into the studio and play them for the guys, and then they'll say, well, Rick, it's too long. I think we're going to have to cut it down a little. And then it sort of gets rearranged and gets sort of triumphized.
Okay, are you ready, sir?
Hey!
One time from the top. Let's do this in one take, okay?
Okay, if I've got it in me, I'll get it out of me.
Triumphizing, shaping the music to fit the Triumph style. Most of the planning will have been done in rehearsal. The band and the recording engineer work out the arrangements note by note. One song can take weeks to get right. Then recording, 2-inch audio tape on multi-track recording equipment. Triumph's gear will handle 48 layers of sound. First the bed tracks, the foundation for the rest of the song. In Triumph's case, the bed tracks cover drums, then bass, then guitar. Next come the sweeteners, more guitars, small percussion, extra tracks to fill out the sound.
Ready, Rocket?
Finally, the main vocals.
Days grow shorter and the nights are getting long. Feels like we're running out of time. Everything seems much harder and tell it right from wrong. You got to read between the lines. Don't get discouraged. Don't be afraid. We can make it through.
Here in the studio, Mike Levine is in charge. In the band, Mike plays bass and keyboard. Behind the scenes, he's Triumph's producer. Mike, you produce all of Triumph's stuff, which is unusual. Usually a band gets a hot dog producer in. Why do you do it yourself?
Because usually hot dog producers are exactly that, you know, hot dogs. And it's, they've had success with one group where they may or may not have been skillful at what they did, but the group was just too good for them to butcher. So we've always produced our own records, and some of my background comes out of record production, so that becomes my responsibility within the group when we're making a record.
Okay, how big a job is it to produce an album?
It's not as big as I'd like to have other people think it is. You know, you have an engineer with you. I mean, it's his job to technically get the sound from the floor through the console and back to the tape. He's got to do that cleanly and as accurately as he can. My job is to tell him when I don't think he's doing it properly. And to have an overview of the entire project. When you start a song, when you start with the bed tracks, what the eventual product is going to sound like when all the tracks are on it and the vocals on and they're all mixed properly.
How long is that in the studio?
The Allied Forces record, it took on and off for almost 6.5 months.
How much time here in the studio, say?
Probably about 4 months of that.
Another good reason for having a studio of your own.
I hate to have the bill for that, I'll tell you.
Concerts and touring play a big role in marketing the music. They're the only real contact the group has with its audience. But touring is expensive. It costs Triumph $50,000 a week to go on the road. 2 tractor trailers full of equipment, a permanent crew of 15. The roadies, always on the move, their lives a constant round of 18-hour days. Roadies are the worker bees of rock music. In charge, the lighting and audio experts. It's their job to make sure the band looks and sounds good, every time. They're backed up by their own technicians, plus a dozen or more staging electricians hired in every concert location. The lighting crews go to work first. They rig hundreds of lights and string miles of cable in a pattern that's been preset by designers. Each one of their lights must hit the same spot, produce the same effect on every stage the band plays. Lighting set, the audio crew takes over. And you'd better believe it's not easy to make someone sound good in a hockey rink.
Yeah.
Each location has its own acoustic temperament. Problems have to be identified quickly and solved on the spot. The audience is paid for the best. Around 4:30 on the day of a concert, the final sound check begins. The band comes in to test the setup. Last-minute adjustments are made. The fine-tuning of the hall is complete. Does the thing that you hear in the concert differ from the thing that you hear on the record?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, we'll rehearse the hell out of a tune and then go on stage and find out it doesn't work, you know, and then you have to, then for the next 2 weeks, every sound check, we'll be trying to improve it. Because until you get inside a hockey rink, you don't know how good it's going to sound and how it's going to work.
My philosophy's always been that if you just want to hear a band, stay home and listen to your stereo, because you're going to get a better sound than you're likely to get in an arena. But you'll never capture at home listening to your stereo the whole building vibrating, you know, with emotion. You just can't get that at home. A live concert is a situation unto itself that can't be duplicated. Live rock and roll should be big and great and fantastic and spectacular. And overkill has always been one of my philosophies. I don't buy the argument that you know, somebody tries to lay a trip on me about, well, it's not subtle, you know, and they're trying to be very arty and all that. You know, that's a bunch of nonsense. You know, I've never seen the Who try and be arty. You know, they come out and they got, you know, they try and blow you away. That's what it's. Rock is power. You know, it's like it's animalistic in nature. There's nothing subtle about it when you see it in a hockey rink.
Blowing them away. That's what the concert's all about. You do a good job, you send them home full of your music, and you hope they'll go out tomorrow and buy your albums. Back home, that's what the record company is hoping too. In fact, it's banking on it. The record company put up the money to have the records made in the first place. It has an army of sales and promotion people. It's their job to make those records pay, to get them into the stores and on display, and at the same time, to get them on the radio. Without radio exposure, a song won't sell. Getting a song on the radio is no mean feat. Radio stations are sent some 800 new records every week. That's 40,000 a year. The record company rep has to convince the station's music programmer that the songs on his label will keep listeners coming back for more. And that in turn presents a problem for the record company. It represents not just one, but a whole stable of groups, often more than one with the same style. So, which one to push the hardest? That's where the band has to go to work.
I think you have to convince the record company that you're their best shot, that they have a much better chance of being able to make their profit by promoting you as opposed to somebody else.
Yeah, but there's so many bands around, and the recording company has only got so much money to spend. How do you get them to spend the money, spend the time, spend the effort on you?
That's hard to say. I don't know. You know, you just go in there and you play the music and you say, isn't this great? And come see us play live, and don't we do a good job? And, you know, that's what everybody's trying to do. Triumph, I think, has got the record company's support and had the public success because we've had good tours and put on good live shows and made good records, that we wrote the music ourselves. And so we've developed as writers, and we've produced those records ourselves and developed as producers. We've learned about how to design a good album jacket that looks good in the racks in the stores, and we've managed our own career and seen a lot of the pitfalls and been able to make our own decisions for our own best interests.
Is your experience typical? Because I think if I've read my Rolling Stone magazines correct, most bands spend an awful lot of time weeping and wailing about what a bad deal they got from the record company, how they weren't promoted properly and so on.
The bottom line in almost any decision about your career is yourself. So if they're complaining that the record company didn't do a good job of marketing their record or promoting their record, or that a manager ripped them off, really what they're complaining about is that they weren't smart enough to make sure that the record company did a good job, or they weren't smart enough that they made a good management deal where the manager wouldn't rip them off or whatever. Instead of having negative energy and sitting down with a guy in Rolling Stone magazine and saying, oh, this guy screwed me and this record company treated me lousy, and I think it's much better to sit down and say, I am going to develop a good working relationship with my record company. I'm going to find out what their strengths are, and I'm going to take advantage of those. I'm going to find out what their weaknesses are, and I'm going to help them out in those areas.
and the footlights are their pathways as the prophets come and go. And the seeming someday singer lives the Connie Barker's dream, selling all by saying nothing in the language of a scream. The language of a scream. The language of a scream.
Success in rock music is 100% a good record and 100% a good promotion and 100% luck and 100% a million other things. And so you end up with 600% or, 1,000%. I don't think you can say it's just, it's just this or it breaks down this way. You got to give your best in every aspect.
The most successful artists nowadays are the ones that are aware of what's going on around them, because it's an expensive hobby. Mm-hmm. Costs a lot of money to do what we do, and if you're not aware of what you're spending, then you're probably not aware of what you're not making.
There's never a position at any time in an artist's career where you're kind of allowed to cruise, or you're just going to naturally get bigger or better than where you're at the time, because there's always it's highly competitive, and there's always somebody trying to cut your grass or be better than you are. Mm-hmm. And the business is the business will each up and spitch out. I mean, they don't care whether it's Triumph or Rush or Foreigner. They don't care as long as they're selling records. So you've just got to be your own best proponent. You've got to it's survival of the fittest, a rough business, rough game.
big, Wayne?
No, I don't think anybody really starts out big. I think all of them individually spent a lot of years paying their dues, playing in bands, trucking around in vans, making deals with bar owners to get their meals for half price and that kind of thing. And when they started as Triumph, they started by mortgaging everything they had, you know, their cars, their socks, their shirts.
What, to get money to start?
Yeah, to put together an act that they could take to bars and dances, that kind of thing, and then every cent that they made, they poured back into the band, and slowly but surely it got bigger and bigger and bigger. I could go on forever and ever and ever, but I'm afraid we're just about out of time. Time to say goodbye.
Well, next week we'll be back with our regular show. I'll have a story for you about some French kids who live in Manitoba, an English province. See you then.
And we'll also have the results of the Canadian Rubik's Cube contest. So long. See you then.